Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Enjoy the show on the ThunderCast YouTube channel, and you can listen to the audio versions anywhere you pretty much like to listen to a podcast. We're really easy to find. All we ask is that you subscribe to the show on whatever platform you enjoy. Share the links to the show with your friends so we can grow this listener base. And if you wouldn't mind, make sure you hit that notification button so you never miss an episode of the ThunderCast. It was a massively big Saturday in herd athletics. Football season kicked off finally in the much anticipated game between the herd and the number 5 in the country, Georgia Bulldogs, down in Athens, Georgia. And right out of the gate, Russ, I got to say, they are as advertised. We got all the stats and info that you want to or might not want to relive, but we're going to do it anyway. Russ, before we get into anything, of course, we've got to get a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
Yeah, they've been with us since what we say day 0, but thanks to Leasure Oliver PLLC, we have been bringing you a lot of content, and let's hear from them. If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
You know, I was going to try to do this show with the hat frontwards because, I don't know, it just felt like the right thing to do, but I got so much to get into, man. I'm going to have to get back to my old self because feeling some type of way a little bit about this one. I'm not 1 foot off the cliff right now or anything like that, but this was a hard one to swallow to start the era. You know, there was a lot of excitement around herd football, and there still is, obviously. But like I said before the ad, Georgia is as advertised, man. You're talking about a playoff team. This is probably a national championship contending team. They were just stacked from top to bottom, and it showed, man. I mean, it really showed. You were at the game, and before we start talking about the actual game itself, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about the trip and what the environment was, the folks, all that down in Athens, because if they're tuning into the recap like they surely did the preview, we want to give them their flowers if they treated you right.
Yeah, trip down was delayed a little bit. We didn't get to leave because of getting the kids out of school and things like that till almost 4 o'clock. So we didn't get down there till midnight. Friday night was a wash then, you know. So it was great. We had a great Marshall tailgate, and that was put on by the Big Green. Everybody that did that, everybody there was talking about how great that was. I was disappointed by the tailgating. Not the Big Green tailgating, the Georgia tailgating. And here comes everybody flying to my mentions right now saying, what are you talking about? I was disappointed because I couldn't find it. I walked down, my wife and I, we walked down to the stadium with plenty of time. Like when we got there, it'd be an hour before kickoff. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I'll get to go see some tailgating, get to talk to some folks and everything. We turn, and immediately there's the gate that we have to go in, and there's no parking lot around there. I just didn't do enough research when we were talking to Trey when he was on the show, and we were on his and everything about what side of the stadium we were going to be walking onto from that street that we came to. And we were at the gate, and I was like, I'm not sure, how far, if I walk around this stadium, I'm going to run into it. Have we already passed it? All that stuff. Where's the big tailgate? So that was a big disappointment for me. I was looking forward to seeing how the Georgia teams tailgate, and all that. But everyone was good. Student section was what you would expect, though. Couldn't figure out which short white kid in a red Georgia polo and khaki shorts was yelling at us. I had to pick one out of 6,000 of them because they all dressed the same. But, they kept chanting scoreboard and telling us to, whatever. And I don't get that because you're the number 5 team in the country for a
Yeah.
reason, and you've got a $28 million or whatever roster of 5 stars. What did you expect, and how does that make you feel good? Walking around afterwards, fans were great. College students were college students.
Yeah. To be expected.
Telling us where we could go and all that stuff, which again, I came to support my team. I don't care if we got beat by 800. I'm not going to like it, but I'm still going to go support my team.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was the vibe. Good fans, good stadium. Wish we would have had a better score.
Yeah. Students are going to be students. That's to be expected. You can't really categorize an entire fan base based on the behavior of a bunch of drunken 18 to 22-year-olds because I used to be one of them too.
And the fans were all friendly, so again, not saying anything negative about their fans. They were great. It's just what you're going to get from some student section with a little liquid courage.
Yeah. I got to say, out of the gate, I'm appreciative of not only the Herd fan base this week, but also that Georgia Bulldog fan base. They tuned in to the Thundercast to listen to our preview, and I wasn't really expecting this episode to do, or that episode, the preview episode, to do as well as it did. I figured we'd see a bump in numbers and listens and stuff because it was the season opener, and there's it's a new era and all that kind of stuff. But we had over 5,600 views and listens across all of our platforms, and that is magnanimous for us.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys listening. I really appreciate all of those Dogs fans in the comments talking about how they were looking forward to the game, how they had, some of them had kept track of Marshall over the years. They loved the story of the Herd and all that kind of. It was really cool, man, and I appreciated that. A couple of folks even mentioned that they remembered that 04 game and that they were there for that, and they didn't want to see anything like that again.
I imagine not.
They got their wish. So let's talk about it. Of course, it was a 45-7 loss for the Herd, but we covered. Good teams win, great teams covered, and the Herd covered the spread. It was at 38.5 right before kick. You do the math. We covered. Let's talk about some indicators as we get into this game. And this is one of those games where all those indicators absolutely indicate the story that this one was and is indicative of the score. Total yards, time of possession, first downs, third downs, penalty yards, and turnovers is what we're going to cover. Total offense, 488 yards for the Dogs to Marshall's 207. Time of possession is a lot more respectable than I thought it was going to be. 34-29 to 25-31. You're still looking at 9.5 minutes there, but I thought it was far more lopsided. Also in favor of the Dogs. Everything basically is in favor of the Dogs until you get a push at the end and turnovers. First downs, 27-7. Third downs, 3 of 15 for the Herd, just 20%. 6 of 16 for the Dogs, 37.5%. Penalty yardage for Marshall, 6 for 42 yards, just 2 penalties for 15 yards for Georgia. But the best one I believe you have to look at is turnovers. Marshall turned the ball over 0 times against this unbelievably stout, fast, swarming Georgia Bulldogs defense. I think that deserves a round of applause because that's amazing. A couple of notes just in general about this season opener for the Herd. 2 things stood out for me. One, of course, anybody can look up, but this was Marshall's first season opening loss since way back in 2012. We'd been on a pretty good streak of winning home openers. So it's the first time the Herd's been 0-1 in a really, really long time. And the big thing that stood out to me in this game, I guess it's in a broader world type thing, is that in the NIL world, this game magnified to me the absolute differences between the tiers and the hierarchies of certain schools, because this is not this. We've said this so many times. This is not the same world that it was in 2022 when Marshall went into South Bend. This is completely different, and it showed. Those guys were great everywhere. And they were as advertised everywhere. There wasn't anywhere that I felt that Georgia underperformed in an area that we expected them to be good at. They were good everywhere.
Yeah.
I just don't. And what really sucks is I think moving forward, you're going to see more of these type of games, not necessarily out of Marshall, but across the country when you go up against this upper echelon of blue blood schools.
Yeah, not just talking P4. Again, we hate that term.
No,
but
I'm talking
that's
about the top 1 or 2 out of the P4s.
Yeah. The top 2 of the top 2 conferences. There's
Yes.
4 or 5 teams, and they just have more money, more. There's a reason they're in the top 5 in the preseason poll every year. Give or take, and that's usually because they just have a better top to bottom roster, coaching staff, and everything, and they've got money that lower P4 teams can't sniff.
Yeah, it was. But what I tell you what, I had a revelation as I was watching this and watching that game, and I was thinking, the world that they're in, it is national championship or bust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, you're like, man, that's a great place to be. But on the other hand, I was thinking that's not where I want to live all the time, because who wants to have to go undefeated? You have to go undefeated for that to be a successful year, and I'm not saying you shouldn't go out to win every game. You absolutely should. But I'm just saying, like, man, what we have expectations as a fan base, and there are people that think our expectations are inflated, because Marshall expects to compete for a conference championship every year, compete in a bowl game every year. Still totally different. You're talking about competing and winning a playoff every year. And for your fan base to just be utterly deflated after one loss, even if it was a tight loss to another top 3 team, you're like, well, this season's a failure. Man, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to live in that world. That was just something I thought about, and I thought, I kind of like the world that we live in. I like the underdog world a little bit. I like being a Herd fan, All right, I know we want to talk about grades, and people want to hear these grades, but we got to talk about what happened to get to where you could make a grade. So let me fly through these player stats. There's a lot of them, and I'm going to make some notes, and then we'll get to these grades as quickly as we can. To wrap it all up, I've got 3 questions that I sent out to our listeners, our fan base, our followers on social media. Say, hey, if you guys got some questions, throw them at me. We'll try to squeeze them into the show. By and large, most of them were centered around the quarterback, so we can, I was able to get most of those into one question. But anyway, Ja'Kai Long got the start, as was long anticipated, but never really fully cemented. It was hinted at, but that's what happened. He took the first snap for the Marshall Thundering Herd in 2025. He went 3 of 11 for 19 yards. Carlos Del Rio Wilson was the second QB in. He went 2 of 3 for 10 yards. Zion Turner came in the fourth quarter, went 6 of 7 for 100 yards and a touchdown, added 2 carries for 19 yards, and was responsible for 2 big chunk plays for the Herd. By the way, those 19 yards it made him the second leading rusher on the team, and he played very, very limited ball. Justin Williams-Thomas was the leading rusher for the Herd, 4 carries for 24 yards, averaging 6 yards a carry with a long of 10. And Joshawn Barbie had 7 carries for 14 yards, and he got the touchdown on the ground. Also added a reception for 12 yards. Xavion Turner-Bradshaw leads the pack out of the receiving corps, 3 receptions, 58 yards, 19.3 yards per catch with a long of 44. And Antonio Harmon, just 1 catch, but a big one, 34-yarder. Of course, great average, 34 yards per reception. Here's the quick notes on the Herd offense. Just 40 yards of total offense at the half. 0 of 7 on third downs at the half. Did not cross the 50-yard line until the fourth quarter. Just 2.5 yards per carry as a team. Here's the positives. No turnovers against this amazing Georgia Bulldog defense. And here might be the best one of all. No sacks allowed to this unbelievable defensive front. That, boys, is a win. The Herd offensive line allows 0 sacks. Flipping to the defense, Kerryon Martin, Cam Smith, and Caleb Clark Glover all tie for the team lead with 7 total tackles. All have 7 solo tackles, and Cam Smith adds 1 tackle for loss. Cannon Lewis is 4 total tackles with 3 of those solo. Here's the defensive stat lines, really the notes for the Herd. They allowed 488 yards. Not good. They allowed a 100% conversion rate on fourth down. 3 of 3 for the Dogs, including 1 of those went for a touchdown. They allowed 45 points. Now, one of those touchdowns isn't really on them because it was a blocked punt that we'll talk about here in a minute. Impact plays for this Herd defense. No sacks, no interceptions, no forced fumbles, 3 tackles for loss, and 5 passes defended. Now, special teams. Lorcan Quinn, just 1 of 1 on extra points, did not have an opportunity at a field goal. Nate Totten had 9 total punts, 405 total yards. Dig the average of 45-yard average on punts for Totten. That's pretty daggone good. 2 landed inside the 20, and he had a long of 59. Again, that name, Xavier Turner Bradshaw, shows up. 3 kick returns on the day, 52 total yards, 17.3 average with a long of 20. DeMarcus Lacey has 2 punt returns on the day, 14 yards, a 7-yard average with a long of 11. And the negative, of course, you allowed that block punt in the second quarter that really put the Dogs in business as if they needed help. Let me revisit my keys. Do you have your keys?
Yeah.
All right, let's revisit our keys. My number 1 key to victory was control the ball, control the clock. Did not happen. Huge X. I said you got to limit those Georgia chunk plays. Absolutely did not happen. Huge X. I said you got to protect the football. They get a check for that one. They did not allow any turnovers whatsoever. And then I said you got to score at every opportunity. Well, you get like a half a check for that because you only got 1 opportunity, but you did score. So 1.5 out of 4 is what I got for the Herd this week. What are your keys to victory? Let's revisit those.
I also had take advantage of every scoring opportunity. No 3s for 7s, no 0s for 3s. Again, technically that happened. Definitive win in the turnover battle. It was a tie. It was a push. Both of us didn't have any. We need scores by defense and special teams. Pick 6, scooping the score. We didn't get any turnovers, so it didn't happen. Play like you belong. It's easy to get overwhelmed in a 93,000 capacity stadium against the number 5 team in the country. Stay poised. I can't give them a check there. I don't think that we made errors. We just were not playing like we belonged there. A lot of 3 and outs and just not good offense. Like you said, the first half of the game, no first downs, weren't over the, or maybe we got 1 first down. Did you say 0 for 7 on third down is what you said? Yeah. 0 for 7 on third down. We had a couple of first downs in the first half, but 7 possessions and 7 punts.
Yeah, it was not good, right? It was not good. It was by no means the worst that I've ever seen, but man,
right.
It was not for lack of trying. See, there's a difference. Like that game against Middle Tennessee a few years ago when we had like 5 turnovers, that's a totally different situation. It just wasn't working. These guys were way too fast for this offense. And of course, you got guys learning in real time to execute this offense. And according to the polls, there's only 4 tougher tests that could have been had in week 1. But man, this was a tough one. 93,000 some fans down there. It's a big environment. But just like we said in the preview, the Herd will not face another team like this again for the remainder of the year. And if we do, somebody in the Sun Belt is unbelievably good. So you got to think there's nowhere to go but up from here. And then based on some of the other results that we saw from both around the conference and the next 3 teams on our schedule, it doesn't feel so bad about how our game went. And it really feels positive moving forward about who's coming up on the schedule. So let's talk about some grades for you. We got quarterbacks to kick everything off. I'm sure you want to talk about maybe an individual grade for each guy and then overall as a position. So let's do that. How about what's your grade for Ja'Kai Long?
Ja'Kai Long, it's an F. 19 total yards is just it's an F. And again, when we're saying these grades, we're not talking about the player. We're talking about the player's performance in this game. If you had to grade it, when I say F, I'm not saying this guy shouldn't get to play again. So
it just is what it is. He played horribly.
But I mean, not just him, but any of these. We're not stating this is who our starter should be going forward or anything. We're giving grades on how their performance was in the game, stats wise.
Yeah. All right. How about Carlos Doverdeal Wilson?
F. Only 3 passes and barely any yards there either.
All right. Zion Turner.
He gets an A. He had a higher QB rating than Stockton did, technically, 99.7 to 99.1. He threw the only touchdown. He was 6 of 7, and threw for 100 yards in very limited time. So he gets an A for those stats. Yeah.
So overall, I guess, what do you got for this unit?
It's a D, and, that Zion Turner's stats are doing a lot of heavy lifting to pull them up out of the F range. But, we just didn't. If you combine Del Rio, Wilson, and Long, what was it, 30 yards total that
Yeah,
we had?
it was almost non-existent for
Yeah.
3.5 quarters of that
Yeah.
game, or 3 1/3 quarters of that game. You got to give all the credit in the world to Zion Turner, because he come in and, yeah, look, it's easy to come into a game in the fourth quarter down 35 yards and take 35 points and take some risks. But I don't think he really took risks. He had 2 crisp passes to open receivers. Both guys made good catches and receptions on the ball. They made good plays.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's just in there chucking it down the field and hoping something good happens.
Right.
He came in and provided an instant spark to this otherwise, geez, I don't even know if you can call the offense at that point on life support. It was never even kicking. You know what I mean? It was slow out of the gate, and he came in and injected instant life into that offense. We went right down the field in a handful of plays, and also for all of those people that will say, yeah, but that's Georgia's 3s and 4s. I got news for you. Georgia's 3s and 4s are probably good enough to start on most every team we're going to play against this year. You know,
they are, but there is a huge drop off from their 1s to 3s as well. So
there is.
So, you know, I think, and we'll get into this with one of those questions you had mentioned earlier, but you know, if you had Del Rio, Wilson, or Long come in that situation, you can't just automatically say, oh, if we would have put Ja'Kai Long in the fourth quarter there, he would have went 3 for 11 with 19 yards. You know, so you just have to look at the situation they were in. And Del Rio Wilson was barely in. It was 1 series, maybe 2 series that he was in. I can't remember now, but 3 passes was all he got. So, you know, I think that they would have had more success against the 3s than they did against the 1s. And I think that Zion Turner, if he started, I saw some people, I wasn't on social media a lot because, you know, that's a long drive back. But I saw a couple of people ask, you know, should he have started? Well, I don't know for sure. You know, practice didn't call for that leading up to it, obviously. But if he went in there against the 1s, I can almost guarantee you, I would bet any amount of money in my life he wouldn't have gone 6 for 7 with 100 yards and would just be chucking it down the field on their 1s and tearing them up.
That's right.
And that's not against him. It's not against Long. It's not against Del Rio Wilson. It's respect to this juggernaut of a defense that was up for every list, as you said, all those award lists from top to bottom at every level. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. It's a D, but Zion Turner did, like you said, all the work to get it up to a D.
Yeah, what the unfair comparison is to say, well, you know, Zion should have started. Well, you don't know if, like you said, he would have performed as well against Georgia's 1s. We didn't get to see Ja'Kai against Georgia's 3s and 4s. We didn't get to see Carlos against Georgia's 3s and 4s. Yeah. So while one guy played exceedingly well in relation to the other 2, well, they all didn't play the same players all game long.
That's right. Or the same situation.
And so for all there are some folks that had some pretty remarkable takes following the game. I think maybe you would be hard pressed to have held your tongue had you been on social media.
So listen, just real quick on that. Let's say Turner comes in and he's the starter and he puts up the same stat line that Ja'Kai Long is. Do you not think that the social media comments would be, why did we put him in?
Of course.
You know, he shouldn't have been there. So it's unfair to any of these 3 against this opponent from not facing the same players in the same situation. You said it, came in down 35 points, and it's the fourth quarter, and you're against the 2s, 3s, whatever. Why not throw it downfield more?
Yeah.
But we also had the time to do so, and the other 2 did not. They did not have time to throw it downfield.
That is correct. All right, so offensively as a whole for the Herd, what do you have? Let me recap it for you. Just 1 touchdown, 207 yards of total offense. 7 first downs, you know, roughly 20% on third down, which all of those came in the second half. So what do you got for the offense?
It's a D-, and that one drive is doing, again, all the heavy lifting. And there was still a very untimely holding penalty in that one that put them at 1st and 20. So, you know, it's as close to an F as you're going to get because the offense was just anemic. But that one drive was highly efficient.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll say. Defensively, what do you got for the guys? Again, very, very low on the impact play category across the board. Gave up nearly 500 yards of offense. And allowed Georgia to go 3 of 3 on 4th downs, including one for a touchdown.
This is probably the score, the grade that I'm giving that I struggled with the most, but also people would think that I might be crazy. But I'm going to give them a C+. And it's largely because there were times that we were doing very, very well within a specific part of a drive against them, taking them to 4th down 3 times. We forced 6 punts that they had to do throughout the game. Their quarterback, who is the starting quarterback for the number 5 team in the country, was 14 of 24. We had some tip balls against him, caused some interceptions. We gave up huge plays like to Branch. We gave up huge, I think we had 4 chunk plays in receptions that we gave up. But through the air, it wasn't like he was doing crazy numbers. He didn't put up 300. I know he didn't play the whole game, but we showed a lot against an amazing offense that I'm willing to give them that they did much better than the offense did against their defense.
Yeah.
And that C+ was kind of like, as I go back and I look and I'm going through my memory and everything and, forcing them to punt back to back, that one touchdown was a 20-yard drive that they had to do because it was a short field from the punt. But we had them a couple of times that we were making stops and preventing them from getting completions. So I was really, really happy with the speed of our defense. Obviously, you can't live on giving up 488 yards and 45 touchdowns or 45 points a game. Felt like 45 touchdowns. But again, you're not going to see that in the rest of our non-conference, and you're not going to see that in Sun Belt Conference play either, that we're going to go up against an offense with the weapons and speed that Georgia had. And I felt, all things considered, man, it wasn't horrible, but I could have slid down as far as, a D or a D- on that. It was a wide range, and I'm trying to think of, like, how do you qualify it by going up against, like, you've already got a great roster. Why don't you bring in one of the fastest players on USC's team, and he burns you for a really good touchdown. It's just, I don't know, but I'm going C+. I know that was a lot of exposition on that, but I'm trying to tell you where my mindset is for going there, and I'm proud of our guys for flying all over the field and not just giving up 3-play touchdown drives every time.
Yeah, that's not a completely unfair grade, because what really stuck in my craw was that early in the game, Georgia came out firing, and it took Marshall a while to get settled in. So they jumped all over us really quickly, and before we knew what happened, it was 14-0. And then a block punt, bam, and now it's 21-0 before the guys really start to settle in. The things that were infuriating were that we allowed 2 touchdowns and another chunk play on an option where nobody covered the quarterback. Nobody eliminated the quarterback and forced the pitch. Okay? Everybody was playing the pitch man. Nobody played the quarterback, and he sliced us to pieces with that early in the game. It was absolutely inexcusable the second and third time, because at some point you're like, somebody's got to get a hit on this guy, right? You have to do that. The other things that stand out to me were the long touchdown by Branch that you're talking about. It was a 47-yarder on about a 5-yard pass, maybe not even a 5-yard pass. Horrible angle by the defender against a guy with world-class speed to not use the sideline as another defender. You gave him the sideline, and he was gone, right? Another time in particular, we blitzed on 2 plays in a row that I can recall. Both blitzes were by Cannon Lewis. The first time he nearly got the sack. The second time they threw right across the middle where he had just vacated his spot, and it turned into a big chunk play down the field. So those aren't things I'm mad at. Those are just things that I saw.
Sure.
You're so close to getting at least 2 or 3 sacks. Paul Hudson got in the backfield, got a hit on the quarterback, really close to getting a sack. Cannon Lewis, I think, is going to be an absolute star by the end of this season. That kid has a motor that, man, he's very Owen Porter-like from a linebacker position. And I think that's going to set really well with Herd fans when we get into SBC play. Overall, it was about a C+. But there were just some bad mistakes that happened that you just did not get cleaned up when you are fast enough. But in the second half, they looked much better.
I did want to say on those 6 times that we forced them to punt, they had, let's see, 26 plays in those 6 drives for a total of 77 yards. That's an average of 4.33 plays per drive, 12.83 yards per drive. So to do that against Georgia or Georgia's second team or third team or whenever they had to punt throughout the game, to me, that was good, to be able to do that. And I don't care about people saying, oh, great, celebrate a moral victory. I mean, what the hell do you want us to do up against a $28 million roster? And
listen, that's not a moral victory. We sat here in the preview and talked about, you can tell when a team packs it in. And this team was down 35 points, 40-some points, and they were still trying to fly to the football. They did not pack it in at all, and that's what you got to see out of a team when you're facing an opponent like that. And no, it's not celebrating a moral victory. Those guys played until the game was over. Because it could have gotten out of hand. They could have just been like, man, screw this shit. And the next thing you know, it's 63-0 or it's 70-0 because Georgia's 2s and 3s can score 2. So C+ is not bad. I'm proud of the effort. I am just a little less proud of the result.
Stats wise, when you look at it, it makes a C+ seem way too high is what I'm getting at, and going, when you just look at the stats, you could go D-. I'm not going to give them an F for that. But it's a wide range, and it was the grade I struggled with the most.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to special teams. What do you got for special teams? Nothing really happened good in the return game, but boy, that block punt, holy moly.
Man, so I'm taking a different angle on this. I've got a B, and it would have been an A+ if it were not for that block punt. So it drops it down from an A+ to a B, almost a B-. But in the return game, when we did have the opportunity to return, we did respectful. When we're respectable, not respectful. Our punting was really great on a game when we have to have that. When you're punting 11 times, you really need to do well. The longest return that we gave up to them, and this is Branch on that world-class feed you were talking about, was a 14-yarder. Most of the time, it had to be fair caught, or we downed it. We had a 59-yarder for one time. Only 2 times. I go through and I say, let's say Marshall has to be at their 35-yard, or Georgia's 35-yard line punting into Georgia territory to have a chance at a 45-yard punt to get it to the 20. So I went through and looked. We had 2 chances to get it inside the 20. We got 2 inside the 20. We did everything that we could. We didn't have a field goal opportunity. There was not a chance where we could have even lined up to try to take one.
Right.
So I think that we did everything right on special teams except for, and it was huge, allowing them to come in untouched and block the punt.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, you were looking at that was going to be an A+, that Georgia didn't beat us on special teams. Georgia, we played them exactly how it should be, kind of even on special teams, except for the block punt. So that brings them down considerably, but I also had to give them their flowers for the punting that they did. And it's not just the punter, because it takes the blockers to give that guy. As you can see, he had that one blocked. It wasn't like he held on to it too long, you know.
No, the whole punt unit did well. Totten really has special teams MVP written all over him this week, because this is a game to where if you shank 1 or 2, that's potentially 2 more easier touchdowns that Georgia's probably going to get, So that was a great job, great average, landing both that you could get in the 20, inside the 20. It was a good job by him, but man, that the block is just egregiously bad, and it led to an easy touchdown. To me, that's generous. But, what are you going to do? It's whatever.
Well, if you look, dropping it A+, A, A-. I mean, it went down 4 different grades that you could. And that's what I'm saying. The rest of it was so good that it brought it up. I mean, if they would have had like a 35-yard punt average and we didn't have any returns, you're probably looking at a D- there.
So, how about the coaching staff? What would you give Tony Gibson and his staff in the first career game?
I got a B. It's not like there was any things. I thought Long should have started. Based on what limited I saw in practice and the videos and comments coming from there, I felt like they didn't have time to throw downfield. I think we had plays that were called for let's do some longer throws, and they were in the backfield as we could. That's not a coaching thing. Getting them ready, he mentioned that himself. He said, we're going to take this. We've got to do a better job of getting our players ready. I'm not really sure what you could have done against the number 5 team in the country. It's not like, if he would have said, hey, these guys are going to be faster, need to prepare for that. I'm sure it was brought up at some point.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah. It's not like you could have come in and said, hey, why don't we run 2 or 3 of our touchdown plays?
Yeah.
And, I just don't know where you can do better here. It was just an execution was not an option kind of deal,
So here's the thing for me. Number one, you're right. So little time to execute any plays.
Yeah.
You could not get creative. You could not have long developing plays. Those were just thrown out of the playbook.
Yeah.
Number two, I think by design in this game, they weren't going to give you much other than base offense.
Yeah,
because why give anything away?
Yeah.
They're not going to throw any of those wrinkle plays. You're not going to see any trick plays. You're not going to do that. And so by nature, if Georgia can stop football 101 plays, then they're going to be successful. And they were. There were some other things that were discipline things that really stuck. Illegal formations, 3 of those, 2 on the same tackle. That's like, and Coach Gibson brought that up. He's like, we got to do better than that. I'll do better. But I'll tell you the best part about what he said in the postgame was he took accountability, and that's a refreshing take. Somebody saying, hey, that's on me. We'll get that right. I'll fix that. We will make sure we fix that. There was no deflection of, well, this, well, that, well, this. Right. No. Head coach took responsibility, and he's like, I'll get it right. Don't you worry. We'll fix that, and we'll be better next week. And as a Herd fan, that's a mentality from an era, a couple of eras, 3, 4 eras ago that was commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And great leaders take none of the credit, or give away all the credit and take all the blame. That's what they do. And that's what this one did this week. It was an ugly performance all the way around. Now it's not because they couldn't hold on to the football. They did great doing no turnovers and all that kind of stuff. But he took accountability for the ugly showing on the scoreboard. Yeah. And I like that. That means something to me. And I think it means a lot with other Herd fans. You can give me a fan grade, I guess, for the people that were at the game, if you want.
Yeah, and I saw some limited social media stuff. I just wasn't on there as I was driving so long. But I'm giving everybody an A. It was good turnout down there. Everyone was really respectful. It was a blast at that big green tailgate, man. I can't go into enough detail about how they crushed it to put that together. And everybody that was there was having a good time and talking to everybody. I mean, it was just fans came from everywhere. They cheered. We still had quite a few there at the end of the game, 45-7.
Yeah.
So I'm giving everybody an A.
Well, hell, man, you don't go to leave early. I mean, that's what Alabama fans do.
I've seen it, man. I never get it. I mean, I was there. It was hot. It wasn't unbearably hot, but it was hot. You're down 45-7. There's 3 minutes left. I stayed until after the whistle and got to talk to some other fans and stuff. And I just, if I'm going to stay till the end.
Yeah. Social media fans were, as you would expect, some of them were already jumping off the cliff already. There's nobody that expected, like here's what's hard. We all talked about you going down there to play to win the football game.
Mhm.
right? That's different from expecting to go in and win the football game.
Right.
And I don't know any fans that were expecting to go in and go, we got this one. This one's ours, right? But still, after the game, it was like off the cliff. I don't know how you're going to recapture the fans after this one. I'm like, how? What?
So again, I'm not talking about anybody specifically because I didn't see this, obviously not being on there that much, but you can't have a predicted score of losing by 30 something and then lose by 30 something and then get pissed off and say, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of that's what the spread was. That's what Vegas said. That's what most of the predictions were in that area. Kind of hoping that we got a couple of scores and, they didn't get into the 50s and things like that. I saw a couple of closer, 14 points or whatever on the spread that they did. But I just don't see how so many people said, hope we don't get blown out by 40 some or 50 some. I get it, man. Offense wasn't there, but I mean, if we would have got 50 more yards of offense and a few more first downs, would you be happy?
No,
it would have.
No,
No,
it wasn't going to change it.
Yeah, it's going to be the same daggone score,
So overall, what do you got? Let's do some MVPs and I'll answer these questions.
Yeah, I got a B for overall, mainly just because, it's a bucket list, get to go down there. Fans were an A. If we're looking at score only, it's an F. But, getting to go on these road trips is what I like about it.
Well, that's obviously that's kind of a personal overall, but for me, just watching the game, I mean, this was a C- performance. There were very few bright spots, but there were some bright spots. I can really hang my hat on not turning the ball over against this very aggressive defense. I can hang my hat on
no sacks.
No sacks allowed. That's a big thing. I'm really proud of the offensive line for doing that, for not allowing that. That was really, really awesome. I saw some flashes from some running backs that made me feel really, really good about what we're going to be able to do against peer institutions. I think this team is going to be different this coming Saturday. Mm-hmm. And for all those people that think, how are you going to win the fans back? I don't know why you'd have to win anybody back. Why would you have gone anywhere after this game? But whatever.
I don't get that, man. It's not like we were expected to go down there and upset them,
Well, it's not like Missouri State beat you 45-7. Then I could understand that. This is Georgia.
Remember Akron in 2016?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that you would say, I don't know how you're going to win the fan base back. Not going up against the number 5 team in the NIL era against them at their house. I don't know.
Who's your offensive MVP this week?
Turner. I mean, he's the guy that came in and had it. Doesn't matter who it was against. He's the only guy that came in and really took over the game.
So I'd like to point out that you mentioned by name that it was Ja'Kai Long as your offensive MVP going in, but it did turn out to be a quarterback for you, so you weren't necessarily completely wrong. It was just the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. But had the order, like we talked about, had the order been different, very well could have been Ja'Kai Long.
Could have been, yeah. Whoever out of the 3 that you put in there was going to have a better success chance versus the other 2 in their situations.
I'd like to point out that I said my MVPs were going to be the offensive line and the running back room because I thought we would need to have that. We didn't execute it very well, but man, those offensive linemen were absolute MVPs that whole game. Mm-hmm. Awesome job by those guys. Who's your defensive guy this week?
Cam Smith. Came really, really close to having a better stat line. That play was overturned, which I think was the correct call. And that's from no benefit of watching on TV. That's watching live and trying to see on the scoreboard, but it looked like that really was not a fumble recovery opportunity for us.
Yeah.
But Cam Smith got a tackle for a loss to kind of help separate him. And I can't remember, and maybe I'm wrong, I can't remember him giving up any of the really long plays that it was his zone that he was supposed to be in. Could have been, but I'm racking my brain to try to think of it, and I didn't think that it was.
I feel like there may have been one, and it was down the seam. I think he bit on a play action. I think, and had to let the tight end to the tight end. That's who it was. It was to the tight end. Nobody covered the tight end. Everybody was covering the run, and I believe it was to his side.
Was that the tight end touchdown?
No, it was not the touchdown. It was just the long pass play. But anyway, my defensive MVP is also Cam Smith. That guy was flying around everywhere. Of course, I had the benefit of seeing things on replay and TV and stuff, but that man put his body on the line all game long. Shout out to Cam Smith, man. What a leader on that field. Wow. I hope he is not in any way, shape, or form dinged up for coming up Saturday, because I want to see more of that guy flying around in the secondary. Who's your special teams MVP?
It's got to be Totten.
Yeah, it's got to be. Excellent job punting the football. Great average inside the 20. All you ask the guy to do in a very, very formidable environment, and he kicked 9 clean punts.
Real quick, before you ask me these questions, just last points of interest I want to get in.
Sure.
Not counting that one play need in the half, we had 13 possessions. 11 of them were punts, and 1 of those were blocked. So, but penalties also hurt us. Seemed like we tried to get something going. We had 14 yards by Del Rio Wilson, got brought back by one of those illegal formations. We had 3 of those, like you mentioned. Christian Richter had a holding penalty, which gave us a 1st and 20 instead of a 2nd and 10 because it was an incomplete pass. We go on to get the touchdown, but still, those are things that you can't have. Caleb Clark Glover had the holding penalty, and then we also had that one penalty that we took on purpose on 4th down to take the delay of game to see if they would get off. But the real big thing, you already mentioned it earlier, but Gunnar Stockton on the run plays. That hurt us much more than Gunnar Stockton on the pass plays. They went 3 of 3, like you said, on 4th down. 2 were touchdowns on 4th down. And the other one set up a touchdown that was 1 play later. So on their 4th down situations, instead of us stopping them and having the momentum on there, basically that's 21 points that went up on 3 4th downs that we had gotten them into. So that was rough. But his running, 10 rushes for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for 14 on that 4th and 2 from the Marshall 31. 13 on 4th and 1 that went for a touchdown. He had an 11-yard run for a touchdown, and he had another 10-yard run. So his running just really, really killed us. So just wanted to put those points in.
Yeah, thanks for the salt in the wound. Let's move on to these questions. Most of the questions obviously revolved around the quarterback and the situation moving into week 2. So our listeners want to know who we think should be the starting quarterback in week 2. So,
barring any kind of injury or things that we don't know about, I say that it still needs to be the person that was going into the Georgia game. If he was your quarterback going up against number 5 Georgia at their house, I don't see why he shouldn't be going up against Missouri State at your house. So I'm going with Ja'Kai Long. Now, that's barring anything, somebody rolls an ankle and we don't know about it. But just looking at this, Zion Turner, again, he starts that game. I don't think that you would have had people saying, look at his stat line, we should have brought him in. Now, maybe he did. I don't know. You'll never know.
You can't draw that line.
You can't go from C to – it's not even C to A. It's like ZZ to A going up against number 1 Georgia, or the ones for Georgia.
So I said this following the game, and I still feel like this is the scenario. And, of course, this is based on all guys healthy, right?
Yeah.
If Ja'Kai Long won the job in summer camp, he's the week 2 starter. He deserves to have an opportunity to start a game against a team that's not Georgia. Okay? Yes. You got to give him an opportunity to show you what he can do with a more level playing field. Okay? Yeah. Now, what you might see is a difference in who the first quarterback off the bench is. Maybe now Zion Turner is the first quarterback in relief rather than the second quarterback in relief, because maybe he does have a little bit of a hot hand now. So to me, at least for week 2, That's the only thing that potentially changes is your QB2 and QB3 in the order in which they enter the game. Ja'Kai Long deserves the opportunity. If he won out of those three guys all summer long and in camp to earn the starting job to go into Georgia, he earns the right to start against Missouri State in the home opener. It's that simple to me.
Slightly different take from me is on the thing where you said only thing that changes. I think from this game, the thing that changes for me is you might not have a situation where QB1 is in for 3 quarters and then the last you see if QB2, QB3 goes in. I think that there may be a more even distribution here to see in this game and the EKU game to see who it really needs to be moving forward into Murfreesboro against MTSU and on into conference play.
Yeah. I agree with that. I actually made the statement on Saturday evening that I think this entire out of conference is going to be used to evaluate everyone to see who gives you the best opportunity to win the Sun Belt Conference. Now, you're not going to risk a loss just to get a guy in a game.
Yeah.
But this is what the out of conference is going to be. And based on the results of those week 1 games, if you don't feel good about coming out of that 3-1, I mean, Jiminy Christmas, Middle Tennessee lost to Austin P at home.
Yeah. And not close.
No, it was not very close. 38-24 or something like that. I mean, man. Yeah. So EKU got beaten to death by Louisville, to be expected.
Right.
And then Missouri State got taken to the woodshed by USC. Now, we're not USC, but we are at home. And I think that they're going to come out with something to prove.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, unfortunately, if the opportunity presents itself because we have to see who can play and who we need, you might run into a scenario where the score gets run up if they can, because so many different guys are going to need to play. It'll be potentially nothing personal, but they have to see who's who.
Yeah.
Second question that we got, I like this one. This is a little more kind of opinion/analytical question. What percentage of the Marshall offensive struggles against Georgia do you think were due to Georgia's defense versus a lack of execution and play calling? So do you think it was like a 50-50 or?
No.
Right. Okay.
Easily over 90, Georgia and their defense. And we already talked about it. Those 4 offensive line penalties, 3 that were illegal formation and 1 that was holding. You know, that's self-inflicted. So you can't say 100%, you know, but when you don't have time to throw, you're moving the pocket almost immediately just so you could try to get a throw off. But I mean, easily over 90% was Georgia, you know. And one other thing, I didn't mention this earlier, but, you know, going back to the no turnovers thing, you know, Ja'Kai Long on several of those incompletions, he was not throwing to where it could be anywhere near picked off. He got out of the pocket, out of the box where he needed to, where it wasn't going to be an intentional grounding, or he threw it close enough to where it wasn't going to be an intentional grounding. And I think they would have called it if it were.
I would have loved to have called it.
Yeah. But he threw the ball away when he needed to and everything. So it goes down as an incompletion, but he wasn't putting us in a situation where a pick 6 could have happened or anything like that. So I think that easily 90, I would go as high as 95% was Georgia versus 5% our offense.
Yeah, I'm in that line of thinking too. I don't know exactly what the percentage I would put on it. It's very high, leaning towards the skill set of Georgia, because we've already talked about the play calling we thought was just going to be very vanilla, that you weren't going to let any cats out of the bag. Execution-wise, you can't execute if you don't have time to try to execute. Now, basic running plays, the illegal formation calls are nothing more than those guys trying to get a leg up, so to speak, on this unbelievable pass rush and to keep guys off of their quarterback. So yes, it's self-inflicted, but it's they're trying to get a little bit of an edge, you know, so to speak. Last question. This is a non-quarterback related question. Which wide receiver do you think has the biggest breakout game against Missouri State?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to give a whole lot away from our preview show that's going to come up, but because it's asked here right now, I do not know. We did not get to see an opportunity for our quarterbacks to throw very much at all until we ran against their threes. So I don't think we got a good enough look. I do think that if there were some quicker separations and things like that, maybe our quarterbacks that were against the ones and the twos might have had a little bit better look. But it's hard to say that just because Bradshaw had that great catch and Harmon had that great catch, that they would be anywhere up there. The same as it's not easy to say that Zion Turner should be our starter. I just don't think there's any correlation for any of that. So I can't pick who I think it's going to be, because it's going to be 100% different than anything that we've seen, because we're not going to be playing Georgia.
Well, it is, but I don't care. I'm going to have a little fun with it. I always love to, pick the legacy player, and it didn't hurt that Bradshaw had a great catch and also had some flash a little bit in the return game. So he has an opportunity to break out in two phases of the game. So I'm going to just go ahead and say Zay Turner Bradshaw has earned more snaps on the field, which would lead you to believe that he has more opportunity to break out. So I'm just going to pick him. How about that?
That's fair enough.
You got any final words on this one?
Love these trips. It's just really, 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 really hard to lose 45-7. So can't wait until the next trip, which shouldn't be like that.
Well, the only words that I have left on this one are Missouri State game is at 6:00 on Saturday, and that's what I'm looking forward to now. This one's over and in the books. It ended exactly the way we thought it would, with the Herd on the downside of the scoreboard, going in 1-0-1, but still all the opportunity to go 3-1 in the out of conference. So our predictions are right as rain right now. The game's going to be on ESPN Plus. You have absolutely zero reason, if you are within a certain number of hours from Huntington, West Virginia, to not be in Huntington, West Virginia. It's going to be a gorgeous day. There's going to be an absolutely kick-ass tailgate that I know about, and I'm sure there'll be more than one. So it's going to be a big party on the lots. I hope to see all of you guys there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
right now, wear Kelly Green. Wear Kelly Green. Not your 2000s era Hunter Green. Wear Kelly Green. It's a Kelly Green out. Just be there. Wear Kelly Green.
Yes, it's not a green out. It's a Kelly green out. All right, take that.
But no matter where you see us, if we're at the Jack, we're at the Vet, or if we are at the C lot for the ThunderCast tailgate, decked out in there, Kelly Green, for the Missouri State game. No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.